Right, afternoon grade 8. Just to go over a set of instructions. Your clipboard acts like an EGD board. So whenever you place your work in your EGD board, you're going to slide it across. Okay, make sure your page is there and resting on this lip. And it's this lip that makes this board special. Because if I want to have a vertical line, I can take a set square and I can position it to have horizontal lines that are perfectly straight. So when you're setting up your page, make sure that your page lines up. You'll see I can line up that ruler, that line there. And from there, I am able to draw perfectly horizontal lines and perfectly vertical lines just by turning these set squares around. You've got two set squares. This set square over here you're going to learn is your 60-degree set square, and it gets its name from its angle. So that small angle there is at 30 degrees, and if we position it this way, this angle here is at 60 degrees. Now if you add 30 and 60, that's going to give you a 90-degree angle. So the other set square that we use is a 45 degree. The 45 degree gets its name from the angle. So the one side's at 45, the other side's at 45. Add those two together, it's going to give you a perpendicular line. This is different to art in that we use equipment to draw perfectly straight lines. Our lines are not allowed to be 1 millimeter out, because if you're an engineer and you are drawing to scale, 1 millimeter could represent a whole meter. And if you're building a bridge and the bridge is 1 meter short, it's going to fail. So that is why when we use our equipment, we make sure that our pencils are nice and sharp, and we make sure that we've got a nice clean eraser if we make any mistakes. But we always try and draw as lightly as possible. So if you want to draw a light construction line, you'll hold your pencil a little bit higher and you gently pull your pencil to get a nice light construction line. Today, we're going to start off by just going over our printing that you did in lesson 1. Over here, you will notice this over here we call our name block. You will notice that there are guidelines on the side here. Those guidelines are for your printing. So right now, I want you to take your ruler, gently draw a light line, joining those two marks. And then in between those guidelines, you are going to print your name and your surname. You'll notice that I am using those Gothic printing capitals that you drew. We always draw it in capital letters, so you are going to print your name, your surname, in between those 3 millimeter guidelines that they've drawn out there for you. Right, then in the bottom 3, we're going to join the next guideline. It is also going to be 3 millimeters. You'll notice that there's a difference between your construction line and your outlines. I am not particular about which block you put your information in, but the information that you need to provide is your grade and your class. You're going to have the date in one of the blocks, and you're going to put your CW for classwork. If it's homework, you're going to put a HW, and sometimes we are going to write a test. And then you would fill in that information in those blocks. So it doesn't matter which block you put that information in, but those blocks are used for that information. Over here, they have got an EGD board with a T-square. Now you have replaced this T-square with your clipboard. So your T-square is going to be your rulers, which you will obviously lean against this clip here in order, you'll see straight away you've got a perfectly horizontal line. And that's how we work out our drawings to become so perfect. The tasks that follow are designed to help you get familiar using your drawing equipment. Okay, a T-square is used to draw horizontal lines. So this is going to be like our T-square. And a set square on T-squares is used to draw vertical lines. So this is going to be like our T-square. We're going to lean it against there to get our horizontal lines. And then you can either use your ruler this way to get vertical lines. If you need a taller line, you can use it and position it that way. But we are going to use our set squares. So these are our set squares. Doesn't matter which one you use. These we use to draw vertical lines, and then you will use this line going across to get your horizontal lines. Right, now if you have a look here, they are showing you a grid in this block on the right. And that's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to learn how to draw those grids. In the block below, draw using instruments horizontal lines that are 10 millimeters apart. Engineers and architects only use the metric size in millimeters. We don't use centimeters. So you're going to use 10 millimeters apart, and then your vertical lines are also going to be 10 millimeters apart. So using your instrument, we're going to go like that. You'll notice that it is 180 at each of these blocks. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, and as accurately as possible and as lightly as possible, you're going to mark off 10 millimeter gaps. Okay, making sure that your pencil's sharp. Using your clipboard, you're then going to take your ruler and lining it up. I want you as neatly as possible to draw this grid. So I'm taking my set square, I'm leaning it on the bottom of my clipboard, I'm lining it up with the mark that I've made, and I'm gently pulling my pencil away from me. So measure, make sure it's right. Lean your set square on the edge of that clipboard, line it up, and that's how engineers get perfectly straight lines. It's important that those marks that you make are very, very light, and try as far as possible, draw over them so that you don't see those marks. This is a 2H pencil that I'm using, and if you find that it's getting blunt on the one side, as you draw it up, you can twist your pencil a little bit, and that's how it will stay nice and sharp. So this exercise is just for you to get familiar with leaning your set square on the edge of that clipboard, sliding it across, measuring accurately, and drawing nice and neatly. You'll find in the beginning, when you do these drawings, you might find it's very time consuming, but the more often you draw, the faster you're going to get. Once you've done your vertical lines, you can then go ahead and measure your horizontal spacing. Again, it's going to be 10. Try and make these light as possible. Take your set square. I think the 30-degree set square is a nice one because it's long enough to go all the way across. And if you look carefully, you'll notice that as I pull it across, I twist my pencil a little bit, and that's how it keeps my pencil nice and sharp. Right, if you have small set squares, you are also able to turn your page over and use your small set squares vertically. That would also help you with that. For now, we're going to turn on our page like this. Using the drawing instrument and A as a reference point, copy the pattern into the space below. So I'm going to take the measurements from this drawing and I'm going to lightly draw those lines going across to get those measurements there. And I can also transfer the measurements by just measuring off this block to copy this pattern exactly as I see it. So step 1, I'm going to line up that point there with point A, and I'm going to lightly draw that line across. Remember, you must barely be able to see it, and we will darken it as soon as we've got all our measurements. And as best you can, as straight as possible, we are going to copy this pattern. The nice thing about engineering, graphics, and design is that we are simply drawing the information that has been provided to us. But it is important that if we are given measurements, that we use those measurements. We can't make up our own measurements. Take that across. Right. From here, I can see that that measurement there to there is 12. So each of these are gaps of 12 millimeters. So I'm going to mark off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 gaps of 12 millimeters. So the final, or the total length, is going to be 84. So I go to A, and I mark off 84. I'm going to mark off 12, 24, and each time we're just going to add and from here, we can now start drawing in dark just by copying the lines that are in solid and leaving out the lines that are blank. So here, I can go 1, 2, 3 down. I'm going to leave a gap, and I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 down. Notice that I'm holding my set square on that clipboard so that I've got that perfectly straight line. The next line that I want to copy is this line over here, so we know that we're going to draw that in dark and that in dark. So this exercise is looking, observing, and then redrawing what we see. Over here, this line goes down one more to there. Some of the lines go under, some lines go over. This line's 1, 2, then it goes under, and then that one goes all the way to the bottom. Remember that you can use these rulers in various positions. So you don't only have to use it this way, you can place it in many different ways. Right, just to recap, make sure that there is a difference between your outlines and your construction lines. Use the drawing that has been given to you to project your lines across very, very lightly. You can see I've drawn those lines in there. And I've used these as a guide to help me find my shape. And then to almost create a grid as we did in this exercise, where we measure 12, 12, 12 as the gaps have been given here, and almost create a light construction grid as we did in this exercise before, and then looking at the drawing and determining which lines are in dark and which lines are left blank. Always make sure that you use printing in your name block. Make sure that it's capitals. Make sure that you provide enough information for your teachers so they know which class you're in, what date the exercise was done, and whether this was done in class or whether it was done for homework. Right, for the next exercise, the 45-degree set square, seen below, is shown. To draw 45-degree lines accurately, it should be used with a T-square. Remember I said to you that your clipboard acts as a T-square. This bottom lip is what you're going to rest your ruler on. So you're going to simply take your 45-degree set square, lean it on the edge, creating a T-square. And then at the corner of your block, you are going to project 45-degree lines. So in this block over here, we are going to be reproducing this pattern. So if we read the question, it says, in the block below, draw using instruments lines at 45 degrees, starting at the corners as shown in the example alongside. So using your set squares, if you have got small set squares, feel free to turn your page over and position it along the bottom of your page there like that. and you'd be able to draw in your 45-degree lines like this. We are copying this pattern over here, so we're going to start at the bottom. I'm going to project a 45-degree line. We're going to go to the top corner. We're going to project that line, so we turn this over. You can either move your page across as long as it's leaning on the bottom. If your set squares are too big, you can turn that over. As long as you're leaning the set square on the bottom, page on the bottom, and where that crosses, you can then carry on that pattern. There we go. Let's see if you can figure out the next pattern, which again is going to use your 45-degree set square. They've given you the instruction that these blocks are 30 millimeters by 10. And if you look carefully, you'll see that this over here is in the middle, so you'd go 15 down, 15 up. And you can use any method that you like, but I want you to try and see if you can copy this pattern. Right, remember that these exercises are designed to help you become familiar with your equipment. It is important that for every lesson you bring your clipboard so that you can get familiar with using a T-square. Bring your set squares. Always make sure that you've got a pencil that stays nice and sharp, so that your lines are nice, crisp, clean, and accurate. Always have your printing in between your guidelines, making sure that you are using your Gothic printing and that you're making sure that your work is well presented. Please feel free to come and see me after school if you have any questions or if you're struggling. I'm always available, always here to help you. And just keep practicing.